All right, let's talk about the hidden code that runs our world. I mean, what if I told you that our entire society, our laws, our economy, everything, runs on a kind of invisible operating system? Well, today we're going to explore exactly that.
So, what in the world could the French Revolution, that infamous McDonald's hot coffee case, and China's massive tech boom possibly have in common? I mean, they sound completely unrelated, right? A huge historical event, a lawsuit that became a punchline, and a modern economic powerhouse.
Well, the truth is, they're all connected. They're all products of the same thing. These invisible rules, this underlying software that is constantly running our world and shaping what happens within it.
And there's a name for this software: institutions. Seriously, just think of it like society's OS. You've got the formal rules like laws and constitutions, and then you've got the informal ones, social norms and traditions. And all of it is humming away in the background, shaping pretty much everything.
Okay, so let's pop the hood and look at the first big module in this operating system, the rules of justice. How did we program the code that decides what's right and wrong? The software for justice has gone through some major updates over the centuries. Version 1.0 was basically might makes right. The strongest person wins, end of story. Then we got a huge upgrade, written laws and actual courts. Much better. The next version brought in science and economics, things like expert testimony and evidence. And now we're even seeing a new kind of patch emerge, restorative systems, which focus less on punishment and more on actually healing the harm that was done.
Okay, that's all great in theory, but how does this code actually run in the real world? Let's take a look at a case that pretty much everyone has heard of, but almost nobody really understands.
Now get this, the number on the screen, 700 plus. That's how many people had already suffered serious burns from McDonald's coffee before the famous lawsuit. They were serving it at a blistering 180 to 190 degrees, hot enough to cause third-degree burns in just a few seconds. But to the company, those 700 injuries were just a statistical blip, not worth the cost of changing things. And this quote from one of the jurors, it just gets right to the heart of it. The jury wasn't just, throwing money at a simple spill. They were sending a powerful message. They were using the legal system's code to punish what they saw as a callous disregard for safety. It was a classic case of the justice system forcing a massive corporation to rewrite its own internal rules. All right, let's switch gears and look at the next module in our operating system, the economic engine. Because the rules that govern money and prosperity, well, they're just as powerful, and they can lead to wildly different outcomes. It's fascinating, right? Research shows that the kind of code that was installed way back in colonial times had these huge, long-lasting effects. In places where it was dangerous for colonizers to live, they just set up extractive systems designed to grab resources and run. But in places where they actually settled down, like the US or Australia, they built institutions to protect things like property rights. And you can see the results of that initial programming even today. And this isn't just ancient history, folks. It is happening right now. Just look at how the world's big players are writing the rules for the future. The EU, they're all about regulations and rights-based approaches. The US, it's much more hands-off, let the market figure it out. And China, they're using the full power of the state to scale up incredibly fast. We've got 3 different operating systems competing on the world stage. But what happens when a simple software update just won't cut it? Sometimes the whole system crashes, and you need a total ground-up reboot. And the French Revolution was one of the biggest reboots in history. This single idea, that rights belong to everyone, not just the nobility, that was the line of code that brought the entire old system crashing down. And the new code they installed? It was radical. They didn't just patch the old system. They wiped the hard drive. Feudalism? Deleted. The church's power? Hacked and brought under state control. They even redrew the whole administrative map. It was a true system big bang. Now let's jump to a completely different kind of reboot, Japan's Meiji Restoration. This wasn't a messy, bottom-up revolution like in France. Oh no, this was a planned, top-down overhaul, all designed to catch up with the West, and fast. So Japan's leaders went in and systematically rewrote the country's feudal code. They centralized power, got rid of the old domains, and this is a big one, they abolished the special status of the samurai. It was a strategic, deliberate rewrite of their entire societal software. And these reboots don't have to be violent revolutions. They can happen in response to a crisis. The Great Depression basically crashed the American economy, right? Well, the New Deal was the reboot. And Justice Cardozo's words here really capture it. Programs like Social Security were a fundamental rewrite of the government's job, installing a brand new safety net into the nation's OS. So, all of this brings us to right now, because our own systems, the ones we live in every day, are under some serious pressure, and it's making us ask some pretty tough questions.
The big question is this. The operating systems we inherited were mostly coded in the 20th century. Are they really up to the task of handling 21st century problems? And what are those problems? Well, you've got head-spinningly fast globalization, you've got digital tech completely changing everything, worsening climate change, massive economic inequality, and, as we all know too well, global health crises. These aren't just separate issues, they're all hitting our system at the same time. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. None of this stuff happens in a vacuum. Globalization can drive climate change, which then hits the poorest communities the hardest, which raises these huge questions about what's fair and just. It feels like the whole system is getting overloaded, doesn't it?
What this creates is something experts call a disequilibrium. It's basically a huge mismatch between what we, the public, need and expect from our institutions and what those institutions can actually deliver. And that gap, that's dangerous. It puts the whole social contract at risk. So here's the bottom line. Our society's operating system is being rewritten as we speak, by new technology, by new economic forces, by new social demands. Which leaves us with one final, and maybe the most important, question of all. Who gets to write the code for our future? Who gets to be the programmer?